The 737 MAX has been an unmitigated disaster for Boeing. Its pair of high-profile crashes and the investigations that followed may irreparably tarnish Boeing's sterling reputation. But last week, the MAX program took a huge step forward, finally receiving the go-ahead to start carrying passengers once more. While this marks a new chapter for Boeing, it also closes a door for Airbus. During the year and a half in which the MAX remained grounded, Airbus had a once-in-a-lifetime chance to steal away longtime Boeing customers and assume a commanding position atop the world's greatest duopoly. But for the most part, Airbus squandered this golden opportunity. Let me explain. Now, before we dive into the meat of the discussion, I want to dispel a misconception. Airbus's inability to capitalize on the MAX fiasco was not a byproduct of the global pandemic. The MAX was grounded in March of 2019, and the pandemic didn't impact commercial aviation in a meaningful way until March of the following year. That gave Airbus a full year to act. Now, a full year with essentially zero competition is practically unheard of in commercial aviation. And with MAX customers now looking to distance themselves from the beleaguered jet, Airbus was in a real position of strength. Even Boeing stalwarts like Southwest, an airline who's exclusively flown Boeing jets for half a century, publicly floated the idea of pivoting away from the 737 if Boeing couldn't right the ship. All of a sudden, the French jet maker could pretty much just sit back and see new business fall into their lap. But Airbus completely dropped the ball. Let's take a look at some sales figures to better understand why. In the case of the 737 MAX, a strong 2018 was followed up by a disastrous 2019, with orders falling from 720 to negative 93. Now, the A320neo family saw fewer sales in 2018 than the MAX, with 562 jets ordered. However, given the MAX groundings, you might expect to see a considerable jump in orders the following year. But rather than that big spike, we see just modest growth, with Airbus mustering up a mere 672 orders in 2019. So, what exactly happened? Why did Airbus fail to capitalize on the MAX? Well, to be fair, some factors were outside of Airbus's control. Amidst the backdrop of an uncertain global economy, weak international trade, and rising geopolitical tensions, 2019 proved to be a fairly soft year for aviation demand. While 2018 saw a 7.3% growth in passenger volume, 2019 saw growth of just 4.2%. Not only was demand down year over year, but it was also well below the industry's long-term growth rate of 5.5%. But it would be too easy to just point to slowing demand and call it a day. The truth is that Airbus made some serious missteps of its own. For one, 2019 saw the conclusion of a multi-year investigation into corruption charges levied upon the jet maker by French, British, and American authorities. It was alleged that Airbus had been paying bribes to airline executives, particularly those in Asia, in order to secure lucrative deals. Most notably, the investigation found that 180 aircraft sold to AirAsia between 2005 and 2014 were secured by, quote, way of improper payments and the offer of further improper payment. The ramifications of this investigation have been substantial. For one, Airbus was forced to pay $4 billion in fines. But more importantly, the watchful eye of investigators likely hampered the ability of Airbus's sales teams to effectively conduct business. What's more, it's entirely possible that potential customers were wary of doing business with the jet maker while it was under investigation, further limiting Airbus's ability to capitalize on the MAX. All in all, this investigation took its toll, but it was far from Airbus's biggest problem in 2019. The biggest inhibitor to the A320neo's success actually came from the Neo program itself. At the start of 2019, Airbus had 6,000 A320neos in its order backlog. While it's obviously better to have a full backlog than an empty one, its sheer size presented a distinct problem. Airbus had originally promised that they would be able to produce 63 Neos a month by 2021. But even at that extreme rate of production, which would be the highest ever for the jet maker, it would still take about 8 years to fulfill each order. Simply put, airlines didn't want to wait that long to receive new aircraft. What's more, airlines were having trouble trusting that Airbus could actually hit its lofty production targets. This stemmed from the fact that Airbus had previously missed its 2018 production goal by a wide margin. The jet maker originally promised that they would build 55 Neos a month that year. But with just 386 planes rolling off the assembly line, Airbus actually delivered about 32 a month. This missed delivery target largely stems from engine issues. In February of that year, an in-flight failure of a Pratt & Whitney PW1100G, one of the two turbofans that power the Neo, revealed systemic problems with its high-pressure compressor. As a result, Airbus had to halt all deliveries of Pratt & Whitney Neos until an adequate fix was found. To make matters worse, hundreds of Neos that were already in service also had to undergo repairs and would need to be grounded indefinitely. This, of course, resulted in many frustrated customers. Now, when engine issues arise, Boeing and Airbus tend to unfairly take the brunt of the blame. In most cases, the engine manufacturers are the ones who are at fault, not the jet makers. Nonetheless, it was important that Airbus have a clear and effective response. But thanks to poor communication and an unclear timeline, it was widely believed that they botched it. Frustrations with the European jet maker finally boiled over during the 2019 Paris Air Show. During the biannual exhibition, the International Airlines Group, the parent company of longtime A320 operator British Airways, placed a massive order for 200 737 MAXs. At the time, it was unknown when the MAX would return to the skies, if ever. When asked about the deal, Willie Walsh, IAG's CEO at the time, said that the deal should be an indication not just to Airbus, but to everybody that we're unhappy with their performance. That scathing remark is the perfect summation of the state of Airbus's business during the MAX groundings. So you might be wondering, what does all of this mean for Airbus's future? Well, COVID-19 aside, the outlook on the A320 program remains strong. While it hasn't taken full advantage of the MAX groundings, Airbus has resolved the engine issues and improved production. What's more, the Neo program still has a backlog of nearly 6,000 aircraft. Since Airbus receives the majority of an airplane's payment when it's handed over to the airline, this ensures the Neo will remain a steady source of cash flow for years to come. Adding a cherry on top of all of that is the fact that the A321XLR is in a unique position to dominate the mid-market segment for years to come, as I covered in detail in a recent video. Check it out in the upper right if you're interested. But at the end of the day, there's no getting around the fact that when presented with this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Airbus couldn't convert. The months and years following the 737 MAX groundings could have led to a paradigm shift in which Airbus gobbled up longtime Boeing customers and became the unequivocal leader in commercial aviation. But thanks to a combination of slowing demand, a taxing bribery investigation, and production issues, the European jet maker simply wasn't able to capitalize. Now that the 737 MAX is ready for its return, I'm pretty curious how much faith you guys actually have in the jet. Let me know down in the comments section whether or not you'd actually fly on the MAX right now, or whether you want to wait a little bit to see how things shake out. Personally, I'm actually really curious what it's like, and if not for the pandemic, I probably would have booked a ticket by now. Thank you so much to my patrons for helping to make this video possible. If you want to join the Patreon community and help this channel grow, go ahead and check out this link right here. And as always, if you learned something new today, leave a like and subscribe to keep learning. And until I see you again, don't forget to look up.